Anyways, how's everyone doing? Good afternoon. Good afternoon, everyone. This is Dr. Joaquin, your trusted pharmacist and proud CEO of Farm True. And I'm thrilled actually to welcome everybody today to another episode of Know Your Pharmacist Live. As your community pharmacist and a staunch advocate for public health, my primary mission is to improve our community's health and well being through evidence based medicine, open discussions, and the sharing of knowledge. So, tonight's live stream, and in general is all about bringing that mission to life. Today, we're going to go ahead and explore the impact of COVID-19 pandemic on pharmacy practice, a topic that deeply resonates with me as a pharmacist. It's truly my belief that the patient-pharmacist interaction is integral to healthcare, and I'm committed to championing this cause. We're also going to delve into some cutting-edge technology transforming the way that we manage diabetes in the pharmacy world. So for those of you who know or don't know, anyways, I can't wait to share it with you. It's about how the Omnipod 5 and Dexcom G6 devices are actually revolutionizing patient care as we know it, everybody. It's pretty cool. So after that, we're going to be getting into Enlightenment Hour, and I'm excited to take you on the journey through the fascinating world of brainwaves and the incredible influence of brainwaves on memory, relaxation, and overall health. As an advocate for holistic wellness, I believe understanding our brain's intricate workings can empower us all to live healthier and happier lives. And in our Herbal Wellness Corner, I'm going to discuss a topic that's both timely and close to my heart. We're going to explore the potential benefits, risks, and responsible use of a specific, widely discussed herbal product, especially in how it's impacting our youth. And that, again, is cannabis and youth. So this segment, our Herbal Wellness Corner, is going to aim at empowering you all as my viewers with knowledge to dispel any misconceptions. So again, we will definitely talk about that in our Herbal Wellness Corner segment. In today's community spotlight, I'm excited to feature a unique local startup. They're called Xclusive Studio. So their commitment to offering sensory-friendly haircuts is a great example of the inclusivity that we do value here in our Las Cruces community. And for those of you who don't know what that means, it's an accommodation for autistic people. Pretty cool. Lastly, in the spirit of camaraderie and friendship, we're going to be talking about bromances for our Men's Health Minute. Drawing from recent research, we're going to discuss how these close male friendships can have a positive impact on mental health. And I encourage you all to engage in the chat, ask your questions, and share your thoughts. So we're not just broadcasting today. We are literally trying to start that conversation and get that thing going, guys. For those of you who are on my Facebook, YouTube, Twitch streams, what's up, everybody? I got the chats all over here, and then I got my Instagram feed separately for those of you who are on. Hello. Feel free to jump in, and I will get to everything by the end of the show for sure, if not during the show. So remember, guys, every question, every comment helps us to make a healthier and a stronger community. So are you guys ready? Let's dive right into today's exciting topics, and together we're going to keep exploring, learning, and connecting. Welcome to Know Your Pharmacist Live. This is Dr. Joaquin. Getting right into this, guys. We got the impact of COVID-19 pandemic on pharmacy practice. Interesting stuff here as a pharmacist, right? We just kind of are coming obviously out of the pandemic on this, and we want to figure out what this actually has meant as far as like outcomes, right? Guys, I'm sure, you guys could probably say the way that you interacted with the pharmacy has changed. And something that I really, really wanted to bring to light here is that, it's changed for everybody, and not all of it has been for the better. In fact, one of the things I really wanted to go ahead and highlight here as far as the impact was the decrease of actual pharmacist patient interaction, guys. And when we look at that, I mean, it's very interesting. So pharmacist to patient interactions had decreased by reported 11.7%. Other outcomes that had happened in terms of pharmacy practice obviously decreased patient flow, which has changed since then. And then according to also high home storage of medication. So people were not properly getting rid of their medications, which could have led to an influx of a supply towards black market, towards other things. So definitely interesting notion there. So 33% of people had reported getting medication from other sources during the pandemic, which is kind of scary because you don't know what people were getting. You don't know exactly what that really meant. So not great. Anyways, the one I really didn't like, 11.7% of patient pharmacist interactions, guys. Something I'm really hoping to, use this live stream as a platform to try to bust, because that's insane. I mean, with the advancements of technology that I do, preach about already in the week long of this show, I really, really, really am advocating for pharmacist to patient interactions, guys. You should be able to talk to your pharmacist at all times. I mean, pharmacists are the most accessible cornerstone of healthcare, in my humble opinion. And for what that is to me, I mean, it really means that we should make it a big importance to show how available we really are. And for myself, obviously making myself available on my Know Your Pharmacist live stream each and every single day for you guys, and getting, to everybody's questions as soon as I can is, a great starting point. I hope to set an example for more providers to keep themselves super accessible. A lot of these old timer providers, pharmacists, doctors, nurse practitioners, all kinds of providers included, especially old timers, really didn't want to get into Facebook and didn't want to get into any of these things because they didn't want to be seen by their patients. So, in terms of a security and a protection measure, as okay as that is, it's almost like, well, what else are we missing there? Because what are you actually missing about knowing about your patients' lives? What if you could actually be a little bit more a part of them during, your digital journeys? Most people spend their times on their phone. If you are a doctor, are you, advancing yourself to the degree that you want to advance yourself? If you get on your phone and you see, so and so's friend that had a wine party last weekend, and you felt like you missed out? Or what if you actually saw your patient going through something that you could kind of be a part of on social media, that you noticed, hey, I can have a better intervention in somebody's life. Hey, oh, so and so, I saw this on your community page, or whatever it is, and I was really concerned about you, or I wanted to check in. I saw that you just completed a marathon. What a cool thing. So why not have a doctor or provider more involved in your healthcare? And especially as a pharmacist, right? Everybody was really, with COVID-19, having to be back there, obviously putting on the masks, 6 foot distance. So, most people are trying to prefer to keep themselves in their bubble. Created some bad habits and some changing expectations, I think, for truly people in their relationship with their pharmacists, with healthcare, and in that level. So in terms of the promise of the advancements that were forced in the telemedicine fields and all of these things because of COVID as an outcome, another reciprocal outcome that we could probably say is that there was a decreased interaction, patient pharmacist interaction, times out of that. And it's frustrating. So, satisfying patient needs and patient care is top of the line. And if you don't know your patients, you only really know half the story. And that's something that, I think most of you guys could already say too. Like, if you have a generic, doctor that you just see real quick at an urgent care, and not to say generic like that, but right, a provider that you just see at an urgent care that doesn't know your past medical history, doesn't know you and your family, they're probably not going to do the same, perhaps not the same work that you may expect from a provider that does. And so I think we do take for granted for the fact that we do have great relationships sometimes with providers, and how to really make the best of that could really impact your healthcare, your quality of life, your family, so on and so forth, right? In terms of, humans and society and sharing resources and some of these other things, maybe doctors aren't the best cooks, but doctors could give a lot of good medical advice. They can give help. And granted, doctors are burdened with time and, staffing shortages and all these other things. So I'm not saying go and blow up your doctors on social media 100%. But, doctors, I do challenge doctors and pharmacists alike to, engage a little more with your patients online. And same thing with your patients. Don't be afraid to engage with your doctors online. I hope to set a good example for that. I hope that we can continue to make that a positive thing, and we can come out and blow that decrease in that COVID pandemic patient pharmacist interaction, and turn that around, because we already know when we're talking about things like medication adherence, healthcare outcomes, and all of these other top level things, healthcare access, I think it's a big deal. Oh, I got a question here. Mr. Lovejoy, Luke Lovejoy, how you doing, sir? What has been the most rewarding part about opening your pharmacy? So honestly, I really 110% think it's been just creating the relationships with the people, the relative stakeholders to the business, whether or not with patients, their families, their caregivers, their providers, and turning it into a team effort. I think, I mean, I truly find big rewards in the team experience and in patient care, and, in connecting all those dots and having better health outcomes. I mean, to me, I really saw that happen, and we were able to get in a good flow of that. So I really think just tapping into that part was the most, and is still the most rewarding part about it. And that's why, I really do stress the availability of keeping myself available here online and digitally engaging and everything like that, because um, that's the new age of the future that we're about to walk into. I don't think we all are all quite realizing the precipice of where everything is right now, because for the fact that this is an available technology, for the fact that, it's a realistic thing to have your own studio in your own home, or, and have a decent production or something like that, capabilities, when even 10, 12 years ago, not only could you not really broadcast with great, connection and all these other things, but you couldn't support it with any kind of technology. And if you were going to do it and go into a studio, you're going to be paying super big bucks. So now the average person, pharmacist like me, can, create a live stream and actually tap into some of these things. And I think it's just really important to continue that conversation and use these platforms as ways to solve problems in the healthcare industry, and to connect some of the dots that we do see in these recurring themes as healthcare continues to start advancing. And it's starting to advance a little bit faster now, for sure. So yeah, no, I think that was a good question. Thank you. I do find good reward 110% helping people and connecting those dots. So whoever they may be along the food chain, geez, that's what makes me sleep good at night. So moving on, guys, next portion of the show, talking technology. So this is rather new technology in the pharmacy field, retail pharmacy field, at-home pharmacy field, that I want people to be aware of. And this is the integration between the Dexcom G6 meter and the Omnipod 5 insulin device. So what that actually is the Omnipod it's an insulin device. So it just attaches to your body, right? It's an insulin pump, and that is regulated by what's called this Dexcom G6. It's a patient blood glucose testing device. And so what it's called, it's a continuous monitoring glucose device. So a CGM, continuous glucose monitoring. And what it does, it's like an actual Bluetooth, it's like a needle stuck in your arm for, right, a week or two straight, 2 weeks, and you pull it off after that to replace it. But that needle is Bluetooth, and it tells your phone and your app that, your insulin level is X at this time in real time. And then it actually talks to the pod, the Omnipod 5, to adjust your insulin dose. And that's something really, really cool. So I had one patient, and he was fully integrated, and he was actually really proud of himself. He had been a type 1 diabetic trying to manage, obviously, diabetes. Affluent man, he could afford to take care of himself to some of these degrees, just to show you guys the level of, this technology is not available for everybody yet, right? So someone who is really, really advocating and, at the peak point of putting their health at the top of their line and their spend, right? We got to work with them, set up this device and this unit for them. And it was really cool to watch how proud he was to finally get to that point of being able to have that continuous glucose monitoring. So, it does create obviously different situations because you need to make sure you ensure medication availability. Like that is, I mean, going to be very important because if you don't have the pod, then what are you taking glucose levels for, right? Because you're going to need insulin for sure, continuous, just as much as you need the continuous monitoring. So when you're looking at the supply chains, it could be, if everybody gets on it right away, just like these other GLP-1 agonists, and this is, guys, is like soon as June of this year, again, for context, talking about in our tech talk, the Omnipod 5 and Dexcom G6 devices, revolutionizing diabetes management. So what I'm getting at is new technology, new medicine is not available for everybody right away. And there's a reason for that because the supply chain is not even going to be able to support that, guys. And that's okay. So just talking to you guys about the successes of the Omnipod and 5 and Dexcom G6 devices. I definitely encourage you, if you're diabetic, to talk to your doctor about this if you don't already know about this continuous glucose monitoring system. If you're a caregiver for somebody, maybe you already have like a Freestyle Libre monitor, maybe you have a Dexcom device already, maybe you don't have the Omnipod, maybe it's for you or not for you, but it's something worth asking about because it's that next level of ease, next level of freedom to that degree. I mean, to those of you who understand how diabetes works, this one is for those who don't, right? People need to either have basal insulin at least once a day, or they're going to be taking, short timing insulin before meals to adjust for how much carbs they're going to eat. So people could be injecting up to 4 to 6 times a day insulin. So, and on top of that, they have to have their numbers right. And on top of that, if you're diabetic and your numbers aren't right, you could be confused because your numbers are off. If your glucose is spiked, you may not have the best decision-making processes available to your brain and the nutrients that need to be. So when you really think about the management and the progression and the disease state of diabetes as a whole, I think it's important just to recognize, diabetes is a management thing. So if you were managing it really, really perfectly, your health outcomes are going to be, awesome. There are situations where it doesn't always work like that, but I would say for the most part, diabetes is such a manageable topic. And, talking about continuous glucose monitoring and talking about the full-on closed loop system between the Dexcom G6 sensor and transmitter, as well along with the Omnipod 5 insulin device, that's a heck of a future right now for diabetes. And obviously when we're looking at the health disparities of New Mexico, Las Cruces, New Mexico, El Paso, Texas, guys, obviously everywhere else in America for everybody else watching, but our community, we are the worst of the worst. So I think this kind of technology is really cool. If doctors and patients could be on this, caregivers could be on this and help to improve health outcomes, solid. So that's why I'm super pumping this. I think it's of the highest regard to talk about here in our tech talk this afternoon. I don't know if anybody that is listening has been on a continuous glucose monitoring device, or if somebody has diabetes and they want to mention about it and just talk about the pain that having diabetes can actually be. Maybe you didn't have it, maybe your parents had it, maybe aunties, uncles, nephews had it, but those who have diabetes understand that it's a burden. And so those who are fortunate enough to get this type of technological care really are kind of pioneering what's going to be the future of healthcare there. So I think that's awesome. Super important to talk about again. But I'm going to move on to the next segment, guys. That's going to be the Enlightened Living segment. Everybody, welcome to the Know Your Pharmacist live stream, guys. If you haven't been on this before, again, this is Dr. Joaquin. I appreciate everybody jumping in and on. Having a great old Monday. It's always Maniac Monday around here, so I'm sure everybody had a good, fun Monday as well, getting the week kick-started. And so anyways, talking about kick-starting the week, guys, what I'm going to be talking about here is the science of brainwaves. Anyways, just kidding. Smash a like if you like this stream. Please be sure to talk to your friends about it, share it, all that good stuff. First ever crazy pharmacist doctor to ever do a weekday live stream. Sometimes you just got to go full send every single day. That's what we're doing. So, anyways, talking about brainwaves, kind of some cool stuff. Want to talk about, optimizing brainwaves, talking about even understanding brainwaves and some of that as we get into this. So, again, definitions to start here, talking about brainwaves from this website, neurohealth.com, nhahealth.com. I'm going to be going over some definitions of these brainwaves, everybody, so you can think about telepathic communication. No, I'm just kidding. But what I am thinking about is, relaxation and the ability of relaxation and mind over matter and how that actually, there's a science behind this. So check this out. So the EEG, electroencephalograph, measures brainwaves of different frequencies within the brain. Electrodes are placed on specific sites on the scalp to detect and record the electrical impulses within the brain. A frequency is the number of times a wave repeats itself within a second. It can be compared to the frequencies that you tune into on the radio. Any of these frequencies are deficient, excessive, or difficult to access, our mental performance can actually suffer. So check this out. The raw, EEG, as we called it, the electroencephalograph, has usually been described in terms of frequency bands: gamma frequency greater than 30 hertz, beta frequency from 13 to 30 hertz, alpha frequency from 8 to 12 hertz, theta frequency from 4 to 8 hertz, and delta less than 4 hertz. So, for example, our brain uses 13 hertz, high alpha or low beta for active intelligence. Often we find individuals who exhibit learning disabilities and attention problems have a deficiency of 13 hertz activity in certain brain regions that affects the ability to easily perform sequencing tasks and math calculations. So interesting, right? So again, we're talking brain frequencies starting from the bottom here. So we're talking about the lowest frequency right now. That's delta. So delta from 0.1 to 3.5 hertz. These are the lowest brain frequencies. Check this out. The lowest frequencies are delta. They are less than 4 hertz and occur in deep sleep and also in some abnormal processes. Delta it is the dominant rhythm in infants for up to a year of age, and it is present in stages 3 and 4 of sleep. It tends to be highest in amplitude and slowest in waves. We increase delta waves in order to decrease our awareness of the physical world. We also access information in our unconscious mind through delta. Peak performers decrease delta waves when high focus and peak performance are required. However, most individuals diagnosed with attention deficit disorder naturally increase rather than decrease delta activity when trying to focus. So the inappropriate delta response often severely restricts the ability to focus and maintain attention. It is as if the brain is locked up into a perpetual drowsy state. So another way to look at the delta wave, the delta brain frequency, it's actually to imagine like you're driving a car and you just shift into first gear, right? You're not getting anywhere anytime fast. So, if you're in delta brain frequency there, you're in first gear. But, first gear is also good for some things. Again, right? So the subjective feeling states of the delta brainwave frequency are deep dreamless sleep, non-REM sleep, trance, and unconscious. Associated behaviors with the delta brain frequency are lethargic, not moving, and not attentive. Physiological correlates to not moving, low level of arousal. You can actually train it too, which is interesting. So all of these brain frequencies you can train, right? By training your delta frequencies, you can induce drowsiness, trance, and deeply relaxed states. For some people, deeply relaxed states can help induce healing within the body, because sometimes the body can never relax. But we'll get into it. Anyways, So next one, theta waves, brain waves. Moving to the next step here. 4 to 8 hertz, the next brain wave being theta. Theta activity has a frequency of 3.5 to 7.5 hertz, and it's classed as slow activity. Theta activity, it is seen in connection with creativity, intuition, daydreaming, and fantasizing, and is a repository for memories, emotions, and sensations. Theta waves are strong during internal focus, meditation, prayer, and spiritual awareness. It reflects the state of being between wakefulness and sleep and relates to the subconscious mind. It is abnormal in awake adults, but it is perfectly normal in children up to 13 years old. Weird, right? Theta waves are also normal during sleep. Theta is believed to reflect activity from the limbic system and the hippocampal regions. Theta is observed in anxiety, behavioral activation, and behavioral inhibition. When the theta rhythm appears to function normally, it mediates and or promotes adaptive complex behaviors such as learning and memory. Under unusual emotional circumstances such as stress or disease states, there actually could be an imbalance of the three major transmitter systems, resulting in aberrant behavior. So again, theta, second gear, not as slow as delta, but still, it's not fifth gear, right? It's not the NOS. So theta, 3.5 to 7.5 hertz distribution, usually regional, may involve many lobes, and it can be lateralized or diffused theta waves. Subjective feelings of theta waves include intuitiveness, creativeness, recall, fantasy, imagery, creative, dreamlike, switching thoughts, drowsy, oneness, and knowing. Pretty cool though, right? For sure. Associated tasks and behaviors, creative, intuitive, but also could be distracted, unfocused. Physiological correlations, healing, integration of mind body. Effects of training, if enhanced, training the theta waves can induce drifting trance-like state. If suppressed, it can improve concentration and the ability to focus attention. So, all right, we're moving up to third gear, right? So, alpha waves, these are between 8 and 12 hertz. We're talking brain waves, guys, power brain waves on health and wellness and how this kind of, makes anything. But so think about this alpha waves, brain waves, third gear here, delta, theta, alpha now. So, between 8 and 12 hertz. Alpha waves peak around 10 hertz. Good, healthy alpha production promotes mental resourcefulness, aids in the ability to mentally coordinate, enhances an overall sense of relaxation and fatigue. In this state, you can move quickly and efficiently to accomplish whatever task is at hand. When alpha predominates, most people can feel at ease and calm. Alpha appears to bridge the actual subconscious mind to the conscious mind. Crazy, right? It's the major rhythm seen in normal, relaxed adults. What adults are relaxed anymore, though, right? It is present during most life, especially beyond the 13th year when it dominates the resting tracing. Alpha rhythms are reported to be derived from the white matter of the brain. The white matter can be considered the part of the brain that connects all parts with each other. Alpha is a common state for the brain and occurs whenever a person is alert. It's a marker for alertness and sleep, but actively processes information. They are the strongest over the occipital, the back of the head cortex, and also over the frontal cortex. Alpha has been linked to extroversion, introverts show less, creativity, creative subjects show alpha when listening and coming to a solution for creative problems, and mental work. When your alpha is within normal ranges, we tend to experience good moods, see the world truthfully, and have a sense of calmness. Alpha is one of the brain's most important frequencies to learn and actually use the information taught in the classroom on the job. So you can increase alpha by closing your eyes or deep breathing, or decrease alpha by thinking or calculating. Alpha theta training can create an increase in sensation, abstract thinking, and self-control. Again, in our car scenario, alpha is technically, I guess, going to come out to more of an idling. It can allow you to shift easily, right? So I guess it's not necessarily the third gear. So subjective feelings to the alpha frequency in the brain: relaxed, not agitated, but not drowsy, tranquil, conscious. Interesting. Associated tasks: meditation to get there. Physiological correlates relaxed, healings, effects of training can produce relaxation. So lower band alpha, where we're talking that alpha theta, inner awareness of self, mind body integration, balance. A little higher, centering, healing, mind body connection. So very, very, very interesting. And these levels of the mind are actually, I mean, I'll show you guys some of these exercises that help people get there and kind of the resources, but there's a lot of things and a lot of good information. Again, talking about beta waves now, brain waves. Everybody, thank you for joining. Thank you for being on. Appreciate everybody. Know Your Pharmacist live stream. We're live. This is Dr. Joaquin. Smash a like if you were enjoying this. Share this with your friends, guys. Telling you, we're going to keep getting after it. Again, talking beta waves, beta activity. It's fast activity in the brain. We are up in the next gear. Frequency of 14 and greater hertz. It reflects desynchronized active brain tissue, usually seen on both sides in symmetrical distribution, and is most evident frontally. It may be absent or reduced in areas of cortical damage. It is generally regarded as a normal rhythm and is the dominant rhythm in those who are alert or anxious or who have their eyes open. It's a state that most of the brain is in when we have our eyes open and are listening and thinking during our analytical problem solving, judgment making, decision making, processing information about the world around us. But in the car scenario, it's overdrive, it's hyperdrive. Interesting, right? Relaxed yet focused and integrated can reflect kind of ADD or lack of attention. So, I mean, if you can increase your SMR, you can have relaxed focus, improve attentive abilities. But obviously, it's a little harder. I don't think we really, I mean, the beta frequency is what we are trying to kind of, get people to realize we don't have to be in at all states of the time. So again, being able to take that down into a different state of relaxation, get that healing power of the mind. General activations of body functions happen at beta, but, focus can come different ways there. Talking about the highest of the highest gamma waves here for brain waves, 30 hertz and above. Subjective feeling states, thinking, integrative thoughts, associated tasks and behaviors, high-level information processing, binding. Physiological correlates associated with information risk task processing. Measured between 30 and 44 hertz, the only frequency group found in every part of the brain. When the brain needs to simultaneously process information from different areas, it is hypothesized that the 40 hertz activity consolidates the required areas for simultaneous processing. Good memory is associated with well-regulated and efficient 40 hertz activity, whereas 40 hertz deficiency creates learning disability. So interesting, right? So we're talking about brain waves, talking about a new study from the University of Arizona that came out today. Article on this. Neurons produce rhythmic patterns of electrical activity in the brain. One of the unsettled questions in the field of neuroscience is what primarily drives these rhythmic signals called oscillation. University of Arizona researchers found that simply remembering events can trigger them, even more so than when people are experiencing the actual event. So again, theta oscillations, more prone in humans who are actually just remembering things compared to experiencing events directly. Interesting. So this could be, possibly showing ways to have implications for treating patients with brain damage, cognitive impairments, including patients who have experienced seizures, stroke, and Parkinson's, right? Memory could theoretically be used to create simulations from the brain and drive theta oscillations, which could potentially lead to improvements in memory over time. Mind muscle memory, all the way into reprogramming the body back to homeostasis. So if you take a patient with, memory impairments and you try to teach them better memory, you can actually compare the oscillations that were present in one experience and find that it changes over time if you actually work to improve it, right? The mind is a muscle. So I think it's very interesting to note here, talking about neurons in the brain and how brain waves are obviously linked to memory, and how, alpha, beta, gamma, delta, theta brain waves are all different, and what brain waves are adding to the actual, mind muscle memory there. And we're talking about theta waves, getting into that. Can you get into it with achieving through meditation, through memory, through recall, through meditation and relaxation? Yes, actually. So again, very, very interesting. Theta level of mind, delta level of mind, being able to jump into those different brain waves can promote physiological responses. Again, mind body healing, awareness, creativeness, but it can also induce drifting and trance like states. It can also cause distraction. So balancing that and, understanding that is going to be the future of all this coming forward. And when you guys see all these different sounds that you can listen to for audio, therapy of getting to X, Y, and Z brain waves and different types of programming. And right, there's something to it there. I don't think humanity as a whole has really tapped all of that yet. So I'm excited to see where it goes. And, I encourage everybody to do their own independent research on this. Check that out. Check out how meditation can increase your different brain waves, and you can achieve different brainwave states, and what the positive benefits of that may actually be, right? So I think that's pretty cool. Thank you guys, everybody who's jumping onto the live. Appreciate you guys getting on for sure. I'm going next into the Herbal Wellness Corner, everybody. Going to be diving into a topic actually that is obviously near and dear to my heart, but at the same time, something that is coming here in the next week for myself. So this Wednesday, the city of Las Cruces is going to be having basically a health meetup, and we're going to be talking about cannabis and youth during this. I'm going to be presenting here, and I want to actually go ahead and talk a little bit about this presentation that I'm going to go up for on Wednesday, not only to warm up a little bit on that, guys, but I think it's just important to cover some of this ground here in terms of talking about cannabis and youth and distinguishing cannabis as a medicine and what that really means for us in a society, and how we all have to tackle this as a whole, as a team. Very important. So again, guys, if you have, a kid, have you guys talked to them about cannabis? Questions, put that in the chat. If you have a kid, have you talked to them about cannabis? What are those conversations? Is it a stigmatized conversation? Is it an educational conversation? Would you even know how to have an educational conversation if you don't know anything about cannabis? Because there's no one out there teaching you. I understand the problem. So again, getting into this Herbal Wellness Corner, guys, we're going into an in-depth discussion right now on cannabis and youth, and kind of just, stimulating conversation. Can't create change by any means today, but we can get there, right? So again, as a community pharmacist, guys, first and foremost, my goal, number one, is to improve the health of our community through evidence-based medicine, including the responsible use of cannabis. So you guys heard me there, including the responsible use of cannabis. And I'm going to go ahead and show you guys, obviously, if you guys heard it from me, then we understand that cannabis has a heavy history in our medical world for, being a medicine. And it's important to consider that. The negative effects of cannabis have been associated with THC use specifically. There's over 200 phytocannabinoids in the cannabis plant. So THC is the one that's federally illegal. The other 200 haven't been really researched either. And there's a lot of stigma around it. So again, THC has, constituted for most of the research when it comes to cannabis, I think people understanding how CB1 and CB2 receptors work, understanding how CBD and THC work, gives you the basis of a foundation of knowledge that you need to know to, have the conversation, whether it's with your healthcare provider or whether it's with your children or youth. So again, guys, our body, just like our hearts, our brains, our lungs, our organ systems, we have an endocannabinoid system consisting of millions of receptors, CB1 and CB2 receptors, which are interacted with by CBD and THC differently. The way that CBD and THC interact with these receptors has plenty of medicinal value. It has mild room for abuse as well, but it has a lot of untapped medicinal value. So when you're thinking about receptors, you're thinking about a lock and a key. There's one lock to one key. That's how locks and keys work. It's really how receptors work for a general basis. THC activates the CB1 receptor. CB1 receptors are the most abundant G protein coupled receptor in the mammalian brain. There's over 1 million of them in the brain. So THC mimics what your body actually produces called anandamide. And THC comes into the brain and binds to all those receptors that anandamide would, your CB1 receptors, causing psychoactive effects because it's in the brain. Psychoactive effects in the brain from THC, have effects on cognition, have effects on development of learning for the youth. It's an important thing to discuss. But at the same time, it also has a lot of other healing properties when it comes to homeostasis and other benefits as such. And the point of the conversation isn't necessarily to get into each and every single one of those guys. The point of the conversation is just to shine a little bit of a light on there's two different receptors. They're activated differently by different phytocannabinoids. THC is one compound that causes psychoactive effects. One compound. Out of the over 200 medicinal compounds in the cannabis plant, THC is one compound. It's a Schedule I controlled substance. It causes psychoactive effects. It affects the brain, your CB1 receptors, and it can affect the developing youth brain. So yes, it's incredibly important to bring light to all that, guys. So that's what I'm talking about. So in Colorado, what they did to manage this in their own community provided like a decent roadmap for things that we can do in our community. Again, talking about all this. So one of the things that I think is obviously the most important that came out of that Colorado deal is that, it's crucial to educate the youth about cannabis, right? Includes discussing potential harms, legal implications, the risks of misuse, particularly for developing brains. An interesting research has been, came out suggesting that the cognitive deficits associated with cannabis use in youth may be less persistent and severe than previously thought. However, it doesn't lessen the importance of prevention and education. And what they were meaning about that through this study is that, it was a short-term, effects. But thank you, Dr. Robinson, on that. I'm so glad you are having this conversation. So many people really don't understand how different the adolescent brain is and how different substances affect adolescents. And that's what we're getting at, right? And I think that's, from the pediatrician standpoint right there is exactly the take-home point that we want to tell to our kids. Our kids want to be the best version of themselves. We want our kids to be the best version of themselves. Cannabis can be a healing medicinal thing for the fully mature adult brain. But for the youth brain, not quite. Cannabis is an adult developing substance, adult substance for the fully developed brain, not for the adolescent developing brain. It's going to affect the way the brain is able to develop. Brain's developing fully until 24. So, understanding and educating the community, you don't see kids abusing. ibuprofen and Tylenol the way that they're abusing cannabis. Granted, because there's no associated physiological high with this, and great, cannabis is in pregnant and breastfeeding women, right? Still very debatable for, I think, the cannabis providers and the research that is lacking, but for what's out there right now, right? Nothing good. If you go to the hospital right now and you're going to deliver or have a kid, you could get called the, CYFD on you for, being a pregnant female with cannabis in your system. Interesting, right? You have protections with the medical marijuana card, but not with anything, not just recreationally using that. So it's important to note, obviously, when it comes down to pregnancy and cannabis, like the research isn't there yet. So even as a cannabis pharmacist there, I don't even recommend pregnancy and cannabis right now because there's not enough data. Like, do you want to be the test subject on that? That's up to you. It's not my call. It's your body. But I would advise, I wouldn't want my kid to be the test subject of that. Right? So there's that. It is what it is. And until we can see data that proves how to safely do it or data that sees it otherwise, it's just not quite there. And so again, discussing to the youth and educating youth on potential harms, legal implications, risks of misuse on the developing brain, it's important. Telling kids that cannabis can actually interact with other potential drugs that people are on. A lot of kids take medication for all kinds of things. Cannabis may interact with those medications. Educating kids on cannabis safety is paramount. Maybe by making your child a more informed decision maker, especially when it comes to other interactions, whether or not they're toxic or not, certain combinations may lead to undesirable effects at the very least, underscoring that need for medical guidance when using cannabis for medicinal purposes. Can cannabis be used in pediatrics? Sure, in some situations and instances. But, we want homeostasis, and most kids are born healthy and just need a good solid diet, lots of love, and really don't need cannabis, right? They don't need alcohol either. Same thing. So establishing those rules for them, establishing the safety, the precaution. Maybe you have less Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde experiments out in high school when you actually have informed youth, and peer pressure can't override an informed mind, right? What if you actually were able to tell your youth that unregulated cannabis products actually pose significant risks? Black market cannabis products, right? Unlabeled vape pens and or other laced products that can come out of black market industry. Black market industry flooding the schools, right? You can go buy stuff super cheap in the states where it's more developed, bring it back and flip it. You can make it on the black market and sell it. And, our cannabis retailers are not selling in the schools. What's selling in the schools is going to be your black market. Somebody's wanting to make money somewhere else. They don't need to make money because, they don't have a storefront. They have to get out there, boots on the ground, and go sell it to high schoolers, middle schoolers, elementary schoolers, right? So medicine is medicine. Don't, just like kids in Halloween candy, right? Why would you take, whatever it is, if it looks like adulterated or weird Halloween candy, you don't want to take it, right? Kind of the same illusion there. And educating kids, where, hey, what can this actually do to you if it's not what it says it is? What if there's black tar heroin in there, right? What if there's fentanyl in there somehow? What could that do? Could that make you stop breathing? Could you die? Are you smart enough to know how to reverse an opioid overdose? Do you know how to mitigate the side effects of cannabis and what happens if you have a situation? No. And it shouldn't be discussions on safe use and how to use it safely for children. The discussion is, adults use it and adults have to use it in a safe manner. And this is why, right? And if you want to be an adult, go be an adult when you're an adult, right? But when you're a kid, you're a kid. Enjoy being a kid. You'll never get those times back. There's nothing to be high for. There's nothing to abuse THC for, right? And I think that's one of the other take-home points. Parents, please feel free to comment in on that. We just want to see, change. We want to see education. I really think that, youth programs for cannabis misuse, by helping to identify and assist youth who misuse cannabis, would be a great intervention. Parenting for Prevention program, a program for parents on cannabis and education to equip parents with the skills to effectively discuss cannabis with their children. I think that would be super helpful, because maybe parents may only know what their parents told them or what they have been programmed to think their whole entire life. And now things are changing, and that's okay, right? We're here for it. So all this is going to be a continuous effectuation process. Like, you can't just start doing cannabis education in the community each and every single day and expect that everything's going to be fine and dandy right away. It doesn't work like that. It's going to take change, small amount of change over time. I'm excited to talk about that with our city council this Wednesday at the health meeting. Excited to talk to the UP Coalition, see what they're also up to. We're in the war against opiates here, guys. And that's something that I really want to stress. We're all on the same team there. The war against opiates, that's the war. That's what's ruining qualities of life. That's what's doing a lot of damage. Cannabis is not, not the problem. So again, next up, guys, segment on the show, community spotlight. Wanted to spotlight in town here, Xclusive Studio in downtown Las Cruces, a new barber who knows how to give haircuts that are actually sensory friendly, and he'll do it after hours. And I think that's really cool. And by that, he said he has two sons with autism. So guys, if you have kids with autism and you need that sensory friendly haircut in Las Cruces, or you know someone who might, highly recommend passing on the information. Again, Xclusive Studio in downtown Las Cruces. Shout out to them on our community spotlight. Xclusive Studio sensory friendly haircuts. Super cool. And again, they are on downtown Las Cruces. New startup. Shout out to Daniel Vasquez there. Saw his post shared on Facebook, and I thought it was really cool, for sure. Again, guys, Men's Health Minute, last segment of the day. Powerful role of bromances in men's health. Bromances. And we are not necessarily talking, guys, here, that kind of bromance, but we're talking about male friendships here, portrayed and often winked at in bromances movies, actually can have healthful effects similar to those seen in romantic relationships, especially when dealing with stress. So for our Men's Health Minute, again, consider bromances can be a good thing. Males get a bad rap when you look at social interactions because they're assumed to be instinctively aggressive. But rats, have shown that they can even have male-to-male bromances, and humans can too, guys, to recover from a bad day, right? So again, you're looking at different types of stress. Obviously there's normal stress, there's traumatic stress, severe, potentially life-threatening stress. So when that happens in the brain, the oxytocin level just decreases, and social interactions can buffer that. So, a trauma, and there may be PTSD, you've got to find ways to get those oxytocin, levels back up, ways to do that, right? Bromances. So guys, go find your best bud and get your bromance going. Get together, especially if you're stressed. Males, get together. It's okay. Males help males. So, a lot of those lone wolves out there, I highly encourage to call your fellow men. Get together, especially during the stressful times. Obviously, not just the stressful times, but you could have some really, really good civil behavior with your male companions. And it can actually help and impact positively stress, and it can actually help prime your brain to deal with subsequent better stress, even stimulating the growth of new neurons. So awesome, right? Social behavior, stress, brain hormones, neural circuits, cannabis, brainwaves, frequencies, all these things that we talk about on your Know Your Pharmacist live stream, guys. It's been a fun one again. This is Dr. Joaquin, guys. If you have any other questions for me, please throw those up. But otherwise, I think we're good for today. So again, peace. See you guys tomorrow.